You may have heard him as guest speaker on the Peter Heck radio show. I encourage you to check out his blog, Right Thinking. He is a husband, a father, a deacon at First Christian Church in Kokomo. Please give it up for Bryan Alexander.
Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate that very much. It's great to see so many fellow mobsters here. I didn't know what kind of crowd we would have this evening with the weather, but I think that everyone has shown that we're all pretty dedicated to this cause. Matthew, I didn't get the dress code memo, or I would have been in my Colts gear like you and Kellen and Deb as well. But you guys forgot to send me that memo, so okay. A few days ago, I was talking to my cousin who lives in San Antonio, and she was telling me that she had recently attended a tea party there in San Antonio, and the guest speaker was Glenn Beck. So I told her, well, now I understand why she enjoys living down there so much. She attends a tea party, and she gets to listen to Glenn Beck. The folks here at Kokomo attend a tea party, and they have to listen to me. So that's the way it goes. We all know life's not fair sometimes, but look at it this way. It's evenly unfair for all of us. I know you'd rather have Glenn Beck, and I'd like to have Glenn Beck's money, so that's the way it goes. Nevertheless, it is a tremendous honor and a privilege to be invited to speak here this evening, and it's an honor and a privilege because of what this Tea Party movement is all about. We're part of a growing movement across this country to rise up to one of the greatest challenges our country has ever faced. And throughout our history, Americans have always risen to the challenges they faced. From those men and boys who fought for American independence in the Revolutionary War to those men and boys who fought to preserve our Union during the Civil War. From World War I through Desert Storm. And now to those men and women who are fighting the war on terror, Americans in uniform have risen to the challenge of protecting our freedom and our way of life for over 230 years. And those of us who have never had to fire a shot for our country owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to those who have. It's not only those in uniform who have risen to the challenges, it's also the spouse who's been left at home to take care of the family. It's the child whose parent has been deployed for over a year. And it's the parents who've had to say goodbye to their child, not knowing whether or not that child would ever return home safely. All of these too have always risen to the challenges. Americans, both black and white, who risked their lives to run an underground railroad so that a slave would have an opportunity at freedom. Millions of Americans across this country who have given money, food, and supplies to those in a city that's been devastated by a hurricane, or to those in a country that's been devastated by an earthquake. And the dozens of Americans who have done the same thing for a family in their local community whose home's been destroyed by a fire. All of these have always risen to every single challenge that's come along. And now here you are. You and millions like you across this country who are rising to a new challenge. The challenge of facing a new enemy, not one invading from a foreign country, but the enemy of socialism rising up right here from within our borders. That's the challenge that we face in America today. In 1776, Thomas Jefferson had just finished writing the words of the Declaration of Independence, and the Second Continental Congress had just approved the final version of that document. And for the first time, we read these words. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. From those words, it's very clear that our founding fathers believed that each and every one of us have been given certain rights, not by government, but by our Creator, Almighty God. They then listed what they must have considered to be the three most basic of those rights: the right to life, the right to liberty, and the right to pursue happiness. Our founders then went on and said that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the purpose of government. Today I hear all the time debate about what is the true role of government, what's the proper role. Yet there it is, it's already written in the Declaration of Independence. The purpose of government is to secure the God-given rights of the people. Yet our government, for over 30 years, has failed to secure the most basic of all human rights, the right to life for millions of Americans who have had their lives taken from them before they had a chance to be born. Too many have turned and looked the other way. It's none of my business. Doesn't affect me. I'm only one person. What can I do about it? But we've forgotten that when the rights of one group of individuals are trampled upon, it's only a matter of time before our own rights are also trampled upon. And now we see that our government not only is failing to secure the second of our most basic rights, the right to liberty, but now they're actively involved in taking away our freedom. But ladies and gentlemen, we're no longer looking the other way. We're no longer looking the other way because we understand that when freedom is taken from us, there will be no pursuit of happiness, and Americans are not going to allow that to happen. And that's why you and others just like you in cities big and small all across this nation are standing up and saying enough is enough. I'd like to tell a little story, if you'll allow me to. This is a true story. It's a story about my family and about a small Eastern European country, Romania. We've got some good Romanians right here in the front row. I brought my fan club. But more importantly, this is a story about what's great about the United States and about what we can never allow to happen here. In the early 1900s, my great-grandfather owned a small farm in Romania. He didn't have a lot of money. He was able to take care of his family, and that's about it. But he wanted more for his family. And it was a growing family. He had a wife and two small daughters, one of whom would later become my grandmother. And because he wanted a better life for that family than what he was able to provide in Romania, he did what so many others around the world at that time did. He left his country. And in his case, he had to leave his family as well for a time. And he went to America. And he arrived at Ellis Island, and he was processed through all the proper paperwork. He was a documented immigrant. And eventually he ended up in Indiana. And when he arrived here, he found work, he found a place to live. He worked and saved until in 1920, after 8 years, he was able to have his family join him in his new country. I can't imagine what that must have been like for my great-grandfather, to leave your country, to go to a foreign country, to leave your family behind for 8 years. But he knew that that was the only way he would ever be able to provide what he wanted to provide for that family, so he did what he had to do. And when his wife and daughters joined him in his new country, they all worked hard. They all learned to speak English. They all became United States citizens. Eventually, both of his daughters owned their own homes and raised families of their own. In other words, every one of them carved for themselves a little piece of the American dream. And that's what's great about this country. Because of the freedoms we enjoy, every one of us can carve for ourselves a piece of the American dream, and everyone who wants to come here from another country and who wants to do it the right way and who wants to obey our laws and who wants to become a part of our society can carve for themselves a piece of the American dream as well. But what we cannot do is we cannot allow that dream to be taken from us. Do you remember that little farm that my great-grandfather left back in Romania? When he left, that farm was given to one of his nephews. And that nephew stayed there for many years and farmed that land, his land. Until one day, sometime after World War II, the communists came and took over the government of Romania. And then they took the land. After that, he continued to farm the land, but he no longer owned it. He and all the other farmers then farmed that land as part of a collective farm. And everything that they produced belonged to the government, who kept whatever they wanted. And then what was left was spread around evenly among the workers. And it didn't matter how hard an individual worked on that land. He only could receive no more than what the government allowed him to have because they were spreading the wealth around, to quote the words of our current president. But it wasn't wealth that was being spread around. It was poverty and destitution, because that's all that's ever left when government controls means of production.